Alright, so in my hands is my very first Spider-Punk book. We're going to unbox it, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to talk about it. So, with that said, let's get into it. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Sean with Hydrosalad Comics here. So, as you heard at the top, I've got what I think is a very cool book to unbox today. So, really, let's not mess around too much. Let's go ahead and get this package open, and I'll tell you kind of the story about how I got the book. So, like I said, this is a Spider-Man Arms Race #1. This is the most recent run here in 2024. All right, go ahead and get that out of the way. And I picked this up from Comic Collectibles, which runs on the Experience Mondays and Wednesdays. I'm not sure if it's at the same time both days. Not going to lie, I probably should know that before I sit here and preach it to you, but I know on Mondays it runs from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Central Time, so that's 6 to 8 Eastern. And on Wednesdays, I think it's the same time. It might be slightly different, but I got this from the Monday show. They put this cover up, and I was like, I like Spider-Man. I've read a few, different things. Into the Spider-Verse was really cool. But I've never read Spider-Punk. And I also like guitars, which is why I got this cover. So what we have here, let me go ahead and get this out of the package so I don't really have too much glare from, the packaging and everything. This came very well packed, by the way. Alright, so I have this awesome cover. What this is a 1 in 25 variant cover done by Maria Wolf. I'll go ahead and get this really up close for you to see the whole thing. So yeah, I like Spider-Man, I like guitars, so I thought this would be a cool thing to have. And when they popped this cover up, I was like, why not? It's a cool variant. Let's go ahead and grab it. I don't really care if this, is something that's an investment or not. That's not really why I buy comics. I buy them to enjoy them, and hopefully, I enjoy this story. So let me go ahead. I'm gonna read this off camera here for a little bit, kind of wrap my head around it, and get my thoughts on paper, just so I can kind of see them. And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about this book in its entirety.
A few moments later.
All right, everybody. So we're back. I have had a chance to read this, and it didn't disappoint. Not gonna lie, I'm being perfectly honest. It did not disappoint. The one thing that I will definitely say is, while the person who did the cover is not the person who did the interiors, as wild and crazy as this cover is, that's this book in a nutshell. That seems to be what the Spider-Punk universe is about, so I can get why people enjoy this story. So, with that said, the creative team for this book is, it's written by Cody Ziegler, with art by Justin Mason, colors by Maury Hallowell, and lettered by Travis Lanham. I hope I got all your names right. If I didn't, just let me know down in the comments so I can make sure I get it right down in the future. So, what do we have with this book? The gist of it, for anybody who really hasn't read this particular #1, but you've been keeping up with Spider-Punk, and also for those who just haven't read Spider-Punk at all. The Spider Gang has succeeded in taking down Norman Osborn, but what this has done has basically left America in shambles in a lot of ways, or at least New York. And you see our main character, Hobie, not necessarily struggling, but he's trying to balance being, of course, himself, a hero, but also the face of like a new movement and rebuilding society. He's being helped by Black Panther and his sister Shuri, so that was actually a very cool thing to see. And of course, you have the Spider Gang all around him, which that was the part that I had to wrap my head around a little bit, was the very different takes on some very familiar characters. But it was actually very cool to see them. Y'all know I'm a huge Daredevil fan. I love Daredevil. So a punk version of Daredevil who's female, Latina, and believe, if not bi, she's, she swings the other way and whatnot. So, but to have that very different take on a character, yet it still be very much a Daredevil that I can be familiar with and get down with, I thought was cool. Uh, Iron Man is now female and known, I believe, as Riot Heart, if I remember the name correctly. And of course, you have Captain Anarchy and Miss Marvel. And this is a very cool team. Young, I get it. It's a very different take. So I had to get used to that kind of a thing as I was reading the book. But the more I got used to it, the more I've let the book kind of just go through my brain. The more I realized that that kind of a difference is actually a very cool thing. So don't let that deter you if this is maybe your first time within the universe of Spider-Punk, like it is for me. It is actually very cool. I promise you, the characters have a lot of depth, just based on this. So I can only imagine what it might have been maybe in previous issues leading up to this series. So we have them trying to put society back together after Norman Osborn. Well, now you have Justin Hammer. This is a guy that the only experience I've had with him before this was in the Iron Man movies in the MCU. So seeing a comic version of him, and he's still a little bit of a buffoon and a crappy salesman, was kind of fun. So there's a lot of humor in this book. He definitely injects some of it. And then you've got Doc Ock, who pretty much, as far as I can tell from everything I've seen of the character, not only in comics and live action, it's Doc Ock. It's the same guy. Very, very coolly drawn in this book. I will definitely say that. But they're basically trying to get a weapons contract, and the government doesn't really quite want to give it to them because they haven't seen any results. So that's kind of the low lining plot for this particular issue. Is they basically send out a Spider Gang sentinel to try and destroy them, or at least get some kind of data so that they can build a different version. Or I should say, that's what Justin wants to do. He wants to field test it. Doc Ock thinks that it's not a good idea because surely the thing's going to get beat or destroyed or something like that. But nonetheless, he goes along with it because he just basically wants to prove himself right to Justin. And so you have that fight that comes at the end. But in the middle of all this, like I said, is that underlining story of watching Hobie try to figure out how to be the face of, a generation or a group of people. So the story in itself, while very eccentric in a lot of ways, there's a lot of really good deep undertones, I guess is a much better way to put it. So I'm actually very excited to check out more of the series going forward, just to see where those where some of that deeper stuff comes up, or as it comes up to the surface, and see how that kind of is hashed out. So kudos to this team for giving me two things. One, a book that is very deep in meaning and has a lot of potential to bring bigger things out, but also something that right in that moment is exciting to read. It's a lot of fun, and visually it's awesome looking. Like I said, just the cover alone got me prepared for some of the images that I was going to see inside. So kudos to the art team. And speaking of the art, I'm going to go ahead and put some up here on screen. So as we're kind of sifting through this, like I said, you can see that the art team nailed this. It was awesome. Very, very, some pages where there's a lot of color, a lot of, it's like I said, eccentric is a very good way to describe the overall vibe of this comic. It's very bright, very kind of in your face. They nailed the art. I thought it was actually pretty consistent throughout the book. And on the pages where you had the big kind of action sequences, they did a great job of, showing that or conveying it. So visually, it was just as appealing as the story. Okay, so what do I think? Do I have any kind of buyer's remorse that my first introduction to this was, 1 in 25 variant, which, this was a $20, $25 comic? No, this to me was worth every penny. I'm glad I have this in my collection, and looking forward to checking out the rest of the series. I realize that the review was very kind of broad stroke, but I want it to be like that because I really want you to be able to go down to your LCS and check this out, or jump on the experience. They might have more variants of the series for sale as they go forward. Maybe you can. This is something that you can add to your collection and have fun. I know the night that I bought this, they also had a 1 in 100 variant, which, as cool as that was, this cover just spoke to me. Maybe they'll have something for you. But yeah, all around, if you've read this series or if you've read any of Spider-Punk, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about the character overall. Do you like what Spider-Punk is, what that whole world's all about, or is it maybe not something to your taste? But keep in mind that if it's not for you, there's no need to trash it, because somebody is going to like this, like me. More often than not, I think it's just going to be something that's a fan favorite. So with that said, that is my unboxing and review of Spider-Punk Arms Race #1. Like I said, let me know in the comments what you thought. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming up on the channel. As you can tell, we've had a lot of really cool shorts, which you guys have been very responsive of. Jay's got an unboxing and a review coming soon as well. Hug your loved ones. Tell them you love them. And you guys have a great rest of your week. I'll catch you next time. Later, everybody.